I'm excited to get started with these clays. So I've been racking my brains. I think I'm going to make some green elf cup mushrooms. So it was these turquoises. I was instantly drawn to them. So they're a teeny tiny mushroom. I'm not going to be able to do them to scale because they're between like 1 and generally about 5 millimetre diameter, the cups. So I'm going to make them bigger. But I'm hoping to get them quite realistic, even if not to scale. So I've got the clay, I've got the Sculpey Soufflé, I've got Fiji and Glacier, and I may well use this as a Premo Teal, I think it is, Teal. I may well use, and I might use the liquid Sculpey, the turquoise one, we'll have to see, I'll play about. And then I've got some chalk pastels as well that I've already powdered up, which are quite well matched in colour. So I'll use those to get a bit of the blending and the shading too. So I'll get going. Right, I've conditioned and blended the clay. Before I go any further, I have to say this souffle, I've never used it before, and it is a delight to condition. Really, really nice and soft. If you suffer with pain in your fingers, hands, wrists, I would highly recommend this clay. I didn't even bother using the pasta machine. I've just gone straight with my rolling pin on my hands, kneading it. So absolutely beautiful, beautiful clay to condition and blend. So I've got the Glacier Soufflé and the Fiji Soufflé. I've done a couple of colours in between, blended those, and then used the teal to get some darker shades as well, blended with the Fiji. So they're my clay colours. So what I'm going to do is start with one of the darker colours, and I'm going to coat it in a very fine layer of the Glacier, then like scratch through the surface, rough up the surface. I mean, I'll show you. But so the underneath colour comes through, so I'll get a texture and two different colours going at once as well. So I'll just start by getting the initial shape of the cup, and it's kind of a little goblet shape. I mean, these mushrooms go through phases, so they start off as a little cup and then they'll open out into a cap, and then eventually just dissolve and back into the wood. So I'm gonna do a few of the different stages. I'm gonna have a selection of mushrooms at different stages in the cycle. So I've rolled some of the Glacier just using a rolling pin. I've got it as thin as I can. I generally find when it starts to tear when I'm rolling it, that's thin enough. And if you can see, it's in parts, it's so thin you can see the light through it. But it's actually still, even though it's thin, it's still quite tough. I mean, that bit there's a bit thicker, so I'll not use that bit. Oops. So I'll just give that a layer around it. Now I've got these tiny tears as well, which I'll smooth over a little bit, but they won't matter. Now I'm trying to not trap any air bubbles. Again, it doesn't really matter if I do, because I'm going to scratch through the surface anyhow. Any trapped air will probably escape. So just see from that side, you can just about see the line where it joins. I'll take it off at the bottom as well. Then I want to just smooth this join over. See, I tend to do all my joins just by stroking them. I find that's the most effective way of smoothing them. Right, you shouldn't really be able to tell that that was ever there. I'm going to bring it up to the top. I'll probably trim a bit of that. Let's get rid of some of the excess there. And I'm not too worried about what the top looks like because I'm going to put a different colour of clay in there as well yet. So what I will do, I'll just briefly show you what the plan is to kind of use a stiff brush to give that texture. Now if I do it now, then I'll just lose it all again by handling it, so I'll do that later on. But that is the plan. So I've got these lovely big ball tools, which I'm going to use to get that cup shape inside the mushroom. I do really like them. So this fungus, the wood that it infects, it actually dyes it a turquoise green, and that wood's been used historically for decorative woodwork like marquetry, where they create beautiful patterns by cutting out and inlaying little slices of wood. And I mean, you can see why with the beautiful turquoise colour. Right, so I'm going to use a slightly darker, I think, shade of turquoise to do the inside of the cup. I don't know if that's a little bit much. I only need a tiny layer. Just get a nice little ball. Should be about right. I do have circle cutters, but to be honest, that'll do fine. Again, we don't need to have perfection for fungi, because they're not perfect. In fact, the thing I find tricky often is purposely adding the imperfections to make them imperfect. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I know that they need that to look real. So let's just bring that up a little bit. And then take that down. Yeah, here we go, the perfectionist in me. I do want a little bit of this lighter colour coming up around the lip. Again, so it's all a bit wavy, and that's good. Tell myself that's good. Now let's have a look. We'll get a bigger one. I want quite an open cup on this one. I think we're about there. Yeah, so we've got a nice little goblet shape on the outside there as well. Just smooth it down a bit. Now I'm going to use the chalk pastels just to get some shading on the inside. So it doesn't matter actually if it's a bit clumpy, because that's how they actually look on the inside anyhow. I don't want to get too much though. slightly lighter shade. There we go. And then I'll use the bowl tool again just to press that, make sure that's properly kind of embedded in the clay. If you do end up getting any of the pastel where you don't want it, I've not got somewhere I do here. There we go. So see how I've got a little bit around the lighter lip. You can use surgical spirit, rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, wherever you come from, it's got a different name, on the end of a bud, and that will just wipe it off. It just removes the top layer of clay, so it's really good for, I mean, if you get smudges of a darker colour clay on there. It's also quite good for smoothing out fingerprints. I mean, there's just a fleck of something on there, I don't know what it is, maybe a bit of dust. So it's good for, I'm saying it's good for removing that, it's not getting rid of it. I'll have to use a blade to get rid of that. There we go. But yeah, so I mean, if you can see there's a fingerprint there, if I were to use that it would smooth it out. So for this technique especially as well, because I've got a thin layer of clay over the top, if I wanted to make it thinner I could just keep wiping and you can start to see the bottom layer come through. So now I want to rough up the edges a bit. So I'm just going to use this stiff brush and just go for it. Again, doesn't matter if it kind of deforms a little bit, distorts the shape, because that's nature. So I can use the ball tool again to, oh, I've got a little bit of the paler colour in there that I don't want. There we go, got that out. So I'm going to use the ball tool, I'm going to drop it, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the ball tool to hold it now, so I don't need to worry about distorting it with my fingers when I grab it, because obviously this rough bit is really delicate, and as soon as I touch it I'm going to smooth it off again with my fingers. See, I love how some bits are thicker and some bits are thinner. So you've got more colour coming through in places. down on this stem here. I think I'll probably make it a little bit shorter for this one. I'm gonna then use some chalk pastels again to put some shading on, just to add a bit of variation to the outside. There, I think I'm happy with that. I say as I carry on. Right. Let's just have a clean up of the clay. So I have a yellow chalk pastel as well, which I think I'll use a very tiny bit of. And then maybe some of the turquoise again as well, the dark one. There we go. Right. So these mushrooms, I'm going to do maybe 6 or 7 of them and put them all on a wood slice for the finished sculpture. So I'm going to just put a tiny bit of wire in the end, being careful not to go right through to the cup, and then I can make a hole in there just to help keep everything in place. So let's see if I can, might use this to take it off. The cup, I don't want to grab it with my fingers and smooth the edges. There we go. Let's see. Right, I think I'm just gonna get rid of that particularly dark patch there. There we go. And there we have it, a little elf cup mushroom.